If you want to borrow money from a bank for your project, you will need to convince them that you will be able to repay them, and you will need to provide security to cover the full value of the loan in case the repayment plan fails. This can be very difficult for all but the largest renewable energy projects that any community is likely to consider.
For renewable energy projects of total value below 1 or 2 million, it is possible to develop a convincing repayment case because you will be generating income from selling energy at a government-backed premium price via the feed-in tariff, and this income should exceed the project costs. In actuality, your main problem might be finding a bank manager who understands the renewable energy generating business. Finance at this level is likely to be secured against something, just as when you take out a mortgage, but be aware that the bank will generally not treat the equipment and future income of the project itself as the security. They will instead most likely look for other security in the form of land or a building, which they could repossess and sell if the loan wasn't repaid. It may be that the community could offer such security, but you need to be very clear that this would introduce the risk of losing, say, your community building if the wind doesn't blow as hard as you expected, or the equipment needs lots of repairs, or the government changes the rules for supporting renewable energy.
For larger projects, there is the possibility of raising what's known as project finance or non-recourse finance from a bank. This has the distinct advantage of treating the project itself and its future income from selling energy at a premium as security for the loan. So non-recourse because the bank doesn't have recourse to any other security apart from the project itself. But this sort of finance will still only be available once you have done all of the project development work, secured planning permission, and got all of the necessary contracts in place. As already mentioned, you'll need other funding for that upfront work. Most banks don't do this complex sort of finance for projects costing less than 30 to 40 million pounds. But some specialist banks, like Triodos Bank, have adapted the techniques and developed their understanding of the sector to enable them to provide project finance for projects costing as little as £1 million. In all cases, the project would still need other funding, usually equity investment, of at least 30%, and potentially more for financially weaker projects.
Project finance involves the bank going through a very careful process of due diligence, where they and their lawyers review all of the documentation and contracts to make sure the risks and liabilities are understood and appropriately arranged. This covers rights to use the land on which the project is sited and to get to that land, construction contracts, equipment supply contracts and warranties, the power purchase agreement with whoever has agreed to buy the energy output, the structure and governance of the company, operation and maintenance arrangements, planning permission and any associated conditions. And the bank will pay an engineering consultant to assess whether the design and expected output of the project is sound.
If this all stacks up, the bank will put in place legal rights to step in to all of these contracts, to take over the project if the company fails to repay the loan. The company's shareholders will lose their equity investment, but the bank takes the risk that, in such circumstances, it will be able to sort out the project and recover its loan from the continued operation or sale of the project.
If this all sounds a bit daunting, it should. These are large sums of money, not to be treated lightly. On the other hand, as long as you and your consultants can prove that your project is a sound investment and the bank is happy with its due diligence processes, there is no reason why a project finance process couldn't work for you, as it does for millions of businesses in many fields every day.